Hello and welcome back. This is Becca, also known as Nightcat or Nightcat's Meow when online, here for another week teaching Linden scripting language. Now, as you recall from last week, we were working with a special sword I'd made available as a freebie. I have gone ahead and made another freebie. This one is a sheathed version of that sword. Perfect for us to learn more about controlling visibility and invisibility, and through that how to control individual prims. We'll also learn a little bit more about listens and about the lag and how they can contribute to that. Those of you familiar with online gaming likely have already heard of lag. It's when a network connection is not as fast as it could be, and actions that occur in the virtual world seem to happen slower than they should, or lagging behind. One of the things that can contribute to that extensively in Second Life are the scripts that are running inside various objects. So one of the things we'll learn about this week is things you can do when coding, especially when dealing with listens, that will make them more efficient and therefore contribute less to the overall lag of a sim. As you see here, we have the same swords as we had before under the control of the sword HUD, just flicking between the drawn and sheathed. And we have over here a version in a sheath that I made. Again, this is made with basic prims. It's not quite as fancy as some of the sculpted or mesh ones you might find, or even some other basic prim ones. But it's thrown together as just a basic example and is also available as a freebie. The link will be in the description just like last time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to transfer, this is the sheathed version, we're going to transfer the visibility toggle from there into here. There we go. And now works just like it should there. We're going to turn off show invisible. And we're going to get rid of that. Now you do see a little bit of glow lingering here. That's related to the glow on the decorative shiny metalwork here. There are ways to get rid of that, but we're not going to be going through that this week. What we're going to be doing instead is learning first how to make it so that only the specific prims you want to have disappear will disappear. There are two ways to do that. A really easy way and a slightly more difficult but much more correct way. We'll also go into why the harder method is correct. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the visibility toggle here. We still have a spare copy over here. Don't forget about that. So instead of doing link set, we're going to take this back to set alpha. This is going all the way back to week 1 here. Since you don't need to talk to a link set, you only need the two arguments, the all sides and the amount of visibility there. We're going to go up here and do the same thing. Need to not get rid of the A. We can save that. It will naturally compile just fine. We're going to change the name of this script here to single prim, just to make sure that we don't lose track of it. And you see here that yellow bordering when I have it selected is indicating that that is the root prim there. And if you remember from last week, only the root prim will appear and disappear, or only the prim it's in will appear and disappear. So we'll take a copy of that. We'll take it out of here. Then we're going to distribute this in each of the prims that need to appear and disappear. Use the single prim version. Into there, into there, and into there, and into there. Now, when you use the sword HUD, you see only the actual sword that was inside the sheath appears and disappears. That is a simple way to achieve this effect, where you can keep the sheath at your side the same way it would work in the real world and draw the sword in and out. However, doing that means you have an individual script in each of these pieces. Each of them is listening for a command. It's processing to see if that command is coming from the right object. We'll open this back up again. Each one, it listens on to everything set on channel 0, which I told you before is not a thing you really want to use. We're only using it for a demonstration. Making sure if what is speaking is called sword HUD, and then passing the message down to here. In this case, instead of one script doing that, you have 4 scripts doing that, all at the same time. And again, with only 4 of them in a sim, you wouldn't notice. But if everybody's going around using these inefficient scripts, that adds up and it slows a sim down. This is often what can lead to jittery performance and things not responding and other problems you can see in Second Life. And stepping outside of Second Life for a moment, if you've had programs that just seem to jam up, or if you've ever heard of a memory leak or anything like that, inefficient programming can result in all sorts of problems. So we're going to learn how to make this more efficient, and there are a couple of ways to do that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of each of these single item visibility toggles. Did not mean to open that. Mean to delete it. Delete. And for those who are looking for a little bit of a pro tip and a shortcut, there's another way if you're looking to get rid of every script in your object. I'm using the Firestorm viewer. If you're using something else, there will be a compatible option. It may just be in a different place. Build, scripts, remove scripts from selection. That will scan the entire object, find any scripts there are, and get rid of them. Now there's no scripts in there. So you see the drawn sword becomes visible and nothing happens over here because we removed that script. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to teach you how to target only specific prims within this object. So only those specific targeted prims will appear and disappear, but it'll all still control by a single script. To do that, we're going to make a new script. Selecting just that hilt there. New script. For convenience, we're going to rename this prim ID. Each of these pieces is referred to as a prim or primitive. Just a little side note there. We won't need anything in touch. We only need state entry. It says say on channel 0, hello avatar. We're going to get rid of where it says hello avatar. And we're going to set it up. LL get link number. Leave the room for arguments there. Now if we do it just like this, this is not going to work. This generates an integer, a number that identifies what place in the object that specific piece has. But say needs to have a string. It needs to have words. This is one of those points that can trip up people that are new to programming, that programming is that very specific. But there is a way to tell it to use that number like a word. You put the parentheses in the word string, that is setting or casting the integer that is the get link number as a string, so say can use it. So we're going to save. Compiled. Now I'm going to need my chat window open here. Here we go. Code example, sword sheathed 2. So that piece, the hilt, is link number 2. We're going to take that, put it over here, go to the jewel in the pommel, drop prim ID in, it comes back, object 3. The reason it gave a name here and object here is if you look at general, every individual piece of this can have its own name. In this case, object, which is the default name. If you just create something and don't rename it, it will be called object. Whereas this, since it was originally the root of the old sword before I combined it with the sheath, is still called code example sword sheathed. And this down here is called object. So we'll put an ID there, go to the back side of this, put ID there, because these are actually two separate pieces. And so we have link numbers 2, 3, 5, and 4. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. Very simple numbers to work with. And we can go use build, scripts, remove scripts from selection, and it went ahead and deleted all 4 prim ID scripts. So we're going to put back in the original visible toggle. Nicely sits in there. Pop this open. Now, because we're dealing with those, we're going to just make 4 of these. We're up here in the show command that you created last week. I just did a copy and paste to create more of them. Now, instead of link set, which means the entire link set, every piece of this object, we only need to do specific 4 of them. So we change link set to 2, to 3, to 4, and I typoed there, so 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to do the same thing here with Control-C, Control-V, till we have 4 of them. Take out link set, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to do the same thing in the state entry down here. You know what? We don't even need this one. So we're just going to comment that out. That one is now going to be ignored. And since you already had the hide and show referenced in listen hide, listen hide, listen show, get the click in the right place, that is triggering these. So that's done. That simple. Now again, you have one script interpreting your chat command that is only controlling those 4 pieces. Much more efficient, especially if you're talking about a large object. Now, the next thing, I talked about interpreting the chat commands has the potential of producing a bit of lag itself. Here we're going to look into how to control that a little bit better. We're actually going to open back up my chat window here. I told you before that it's okay for this demonstration, but you don't want to have your commands go on channel 0. Channel 0 is your open conversation. If I just type out hello with no channel, that's on channel 0. All of these commands were coming on channel 0. Just like that. If you're in an open environment, it's very annoying to the people around you to have those going off all the time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set it to listen to a different channel. Not only is this polite, this is more efficient. Remember when I said it has to compare things according to the listen command every time that it has chat going? Well, if all of the chat on channel 0, if everybody conversing back and forth is on channel 0, that means every time that somebody says something on channel 0, it has to check to see if it came from Sword HUD. That's a quick check, but it still has to check it every single time. That can add up fast. So, We're going to change it to listen on channel 22. Save. Close that. Now notice nothing happened. This appeared, but this didn't change. That's because the thing is still sending on channel 0. We now have this set to listen on channel 22 the same way. It ignores it because this is speaking on channel 0. So it's not able to get past the first argument of the listen command, but we can change that very easily. Right here, 22, 22. Save. Close, close, and it works again. No more chat spam. So you've solved 2 problems. 1, you're on a channel that has less traffic, so your listen command has to do less filtering, which makes it slightly more efficient. You are also no longer spamming your control chat to everybody in range. The second thing we already covered last week is a matter of security, setting it for sword HUD. That made sure that if the object that set it was not named sword HUD, it would be ignored. There's one more thing we can set, and to do that we're going to want 2 of these. We can set this to filter for commands. On, off. Now, whenever we click this and it sends a command on channel 22, it confirms it came from sword HUD, and unless it says either on or off, it will be ignored. So any other devices out there broadcasting on channel 22, if they're not named sword HUD, it ignores them. If somebody created another thing called sword HUD, it would only have to check for those 2 commands. Otherwise, it would ignore it. And that's before it ever gets down here to process who, which is the key here. What is the key this received from? Get owner key of who. Get the owner of who. So it gets a key for where it came from, and then it checks to see who owns that key and compares the key of its owner to get owner, which would be your key, and sees if they match. Then it goes through and decides which option to take here. Now for this particular instance, you're not going to save a lot of efficiency. But the bigger and more complicated things you create, the more this can be a concern. So it's a good habit to get into. It's a good practice to do every time, even when it's simple and won't make a big difference. Because some days you're going to be working on projects where it will make a difference. So we're going to make the same change over here. When you're dealing with 2 objects, you always have to make the same changes on both. Search for on, search for off. Save. Now, no change to how it operates. The last thing that we're going to look at, to again cut this down even further, is we're going to make sure that your HUD only sends a message to your objects. And we're going to do that with LL RegionSay 2. Be careful you put in a RegionSay 2 because there is just a RegionSay. What this does, if it's just RegionSay, that broadcasts that message right there on channel 22 to the entire sim. Everywhere in the little bit of virtual world you're standing in, everything is going to get that message. Normally there's a certain range that chat will reach. With RegionSay, it goes everywhere. Do not abuse this. Sim owners, sim security, all of those people will get very annoyed if you go broadcasting a message on channel 0 through the entire sim without a very good reason. Don't abuse it. However, RegionSay 2 is slightly different. It sends it only to a given key or to things that belong to a given key. Successful. RegionSay 2. Get owner. I'll even set up a demonstration of this in a minute. Make sure that's cleared up. Successful. Close. Now, because it's RegionSay 2, it will only reach you or the things you have attached. Now, I know I didn't center that sword right last time, but this time I'm going to actually nitpick that. Not that it takes very long to do so. There. On and off. It will only trigger on an object attached to the individual whose key it is being broadcast to, or an object who has the key programmed in. This way, other objects in the sim don't even get the message. This combination is the most efficient you can make a command. RegionSay 2, get owner. Send this message to my owner's key wherever they are in the sim. Nothing else. Send it. Everything else just ignores it. They don't even get the message. Then, when it's received, is it on the right channel? Did it come from the right source? Did it use the right command before the listen ever has to process it? At which point, it double checks. Did this come from an object owned by my owner? This would prevent somebody from just creating a object called Sword HUD that spoke on channel 22 everywhere and manipulating your objects, because that would get annoying. So, you've learned a little bit about efficiency. You've learned how to control specific parts of an overall object. You've learned how to isolate the specific parts of that object so you're able to target what you want. Next week, we'll move on to a few more things you can control. We'll move on to how to make something light up, and we'll move on to how to make it change its size, and we'll use these to create lamps and doors. Hope to see you next week to continue our journey into the wonderful and sometimes wacky world of programming.